Divorce. It's a really hard topic to talk about for a lot of people. Not me, of course. No, I'm good with it. But I know that that's one of the things that you gentlemen have begun to address with a number of clients. And so let's spend some time giving some people some advice about that. I mean, the first thing, obviously you try to save your marriage, and when you realize you can't, and at that point, we're just going to talk about the specifics once you decided on divorce. First thing you got to do is get some professional help.
I think that's a very good point. The first thing, a lot of people, when they think of professional help, obviously think of attorneys. And that's usually the first person that you consult with if your marriage, like you said, has disintegrated. I think a lot of people just don't do a lot of pre-planning before the divorce. And that's really one of the major issues to think about.
I think people aren't really thinking they're going to get divorced.
Right. But if you've decided maybe that you think you're going to get divorced,
then what do you do?
I think you need to start to talk to a financial advisor so that sometimes one of the parties may not be left in a situation where they're prepared to actually go through a divorce. So,
what do you mean?
Well, as an example, if husband and wife, and let's just say the wife has all the money in her checking account and the husband wants to get divorced and they decide to separate, the husband may not have any money to actually move through a divorce. So you actually have to have money to get divorced. You just cannot get up and leave and get divorced. You have to have money to get a new house or rent a place. You have to have money to file. You have to have money to pay the divorce attorney. And a lot of times, both spouses actually don't have money in their own accounts. It may be in just the other spouse's account. You have to sort of prepare and make sure there's enough money in the person who's leaving and who's initiating the divorce's account.
So what I hear you saying is that if you have come to the point in your life where you realize a divorce is inevitable, the very first thing to do is to talk to a financial expert, even before a divorce attorney?
I think it can be helpful to make sure that you're prepared for all of the financial consequences of actually going through the divorce process, not even post-divorce, because obviously the divorce courts and judges sort of work that, but the process can last a year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on your situation. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared during that period, and it can be traumatic for someone when they realize that they don't have enough money to work the process until a judge can figure out how to divide assets and do stuff. I find that actually one of the most difficult pieces that people overlook. And while it's not really a technical issue per se, it's something to really, really think about.
There are a lot of good divorce attorneys, and I know many of you watching are divorce attorneys. And a good divorce attorney obviously will help a client through a lot of that. But this is even before that, is what I hear you saying.
I think so. I think, if, like you said, if you're contemplating it may be an issue a year in the future, or 6 months in the future, or it's inevitable, to really start to think about your own financial plan. How are you going to work the process? What are you going to do after? A good financial advisor can give you some sense of probably what you could expect to receive in a divorce, because as you know, in divorces, or what have left over, there are rules in Massachusetts, for example, for child support. It's not a mystery for how much someone will have to pay for child support.
There's a formula.
There's a formula, a very specific formula. Even alimony, there's a fairly specific formula.
Laws have changed, though, recently, haven't they?
They have, to probably make alimony a little bit more formulaic than...
equitable, is that a word that would...
It could be. I mean, I think it's given some rules, so there is some idea of what the alimony calculation will be. It used to be that the judges would have a lot of discretion, and it's really removed some discretion from the judges. But depending how long your marriage has been intact, there are rules as to what assets will be divided.
Gary, jump in here.
Well, I think as Mike said, the pre-divorce as well as the post-divorce planning is something that we spend a lot of time on in terms of our understanding of the budgets, there can be a lot of moving parts. You might have kids going off to college. I mean, just so many different, one spouse might work full-time, the other one may not work full-time. I mean, you have all kinds of different scenarios. So what we try to do is to work very hard to pull together the pieces of the puzzle and actually put them down on paper as a budget. So we have the software systems that we use to pull that information all together. So as Mike said, on the asset side, that you know where the accounts are and where you have available funds, but you also have because it's obviously a very traumatic sort of, there's a lot of angst going on, have at least a sense that, okay, I can see what my monthly budget is. Do I have to make some changes, et cetera. So that's a part of as I said, the pre-divorce period, but also post-divorce, having all of that down on paper and, run different scenarios.
Is one gender more susceptible through statistics than another? In other words, do women need to know certain things that men, don't need to? Is it different?
There's probably a slight tendency towards women having less control over their finances, not so much less knowledge, but generally a little bit less control. In that, I think there still is a percentage more men who are the primary wage earners than women, especially when they're raising children. And the primary wage earner generally pays the bills. It depends. It's not always true. So most definitely, if you're a woman, raising children and stuff like that, it's even more paramount that you sort of, take a look at this early on. And sometimes for more senior divorces, that can be an issue as well for either party.
Well, I think one of the things that you said that's very encouraging to a lot of people is that the laws have changed so that the judges are not the ones who are arbitrarily making decisions based on what they think might be fair and equitable.
Absolutely. I think it is good to have rules because you get more stability. Whether all the rules are completely fair, it's sort of a legislature, a issue or lawmaker, but the rules seem to be reasonably equitable and fair in my humble opinion. The issue is trying to figure out who has what assets, what income there really is.
And honesty is really important.
It is.
You really have to, one of the first things is filing the financials.
Right.
And knowing how to do that sometimes can even be overwhelming. Lawyers can help you through it, but what I hear you saying is that you need to have a good financial person.
Right, and you have a lot of assets that you may not have a specific value, real estate or companies or businesses. It's hard to value those things, so it's important up front for a person to get an idea of, if you're in a family business, what that actually might be worth, as opposed to speculating or having some, fantasy as to what you think you might get in a divorce. You might enter a divorce thinking you might get a certain amount of assets, when in fact, by the time things are valued and done, you may not, and it may not be as beneficial of a result.
Mm. Now, you guys obviously are not divorce attorneys, nor do you want to be. This is not about trying to dissolve marriages, but what it is about is trying to make sure that people are protected and understand their rights and what they have.
Yeah, it's all about going into it with eyes wide open and just understanding, and I think it relieves the pressure, it relieves the stress, and just helps through what, as Gary mentioned, as we all know, is just a very traumatic process in and of itself. It's tough enough to go through the legal process. If we take this issue off the table and have a little bit more knowledge and plan, almost a divorce financial plan that we sort of recommend you go into the divorce with a little bit of a financial plan, it takes the pressure off.
Yeah, and there are tax ramifications and all those things that people just don't even think about.
Oh. Divorce is probably the most complicated financial planning issue that there is. It honestly is in so many ways. So you have to really take it that seriously, that it's going to be that serious to you currently and sometime in the future. And the tax issues, the insurance issues, the estate planning issues, the educational and issues, it's just endless.
Children, it's endless.
Endless. It is endless.
Unfortunately, this show is not endless. that we have to, is there anything else quickly in our last minute that you want to touch on? Gary, anything you want to add?
I just
about
think
divorce?
in terms of divorce, so I guess the bottom line is that it's a team effort. It's not just the attorney, but it's whether
That's
it's an
good point.
accountant or financial advisor, investment, or all of the above,
Yeah,
to be involved. And number two, not necessarily wait too long, but have it be part of the pre-divorce process as well as post-divorce.
I guess that's the one message that we really want to send to everybody, that you really need to have a good financial expert in your life for whatever reason. I mean, just an advisor.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with having someone just to bounce off questions and to support you at any phase of your life. It's probably a good idea.
I would say.
Right, people are very busy today, so to have that extra team member is comforting as well as helpful.
Right, and a lot of us are not the financial experts that we would like to be. That would be an understatement in the case of moi. So thank you very much,
No, thank
Gary
you.
Coon,
Thank you,
Michael
Susan.
Feiner from Feiner Wealth Management. I'm Susan Wornick. See you next time.